Welcome back to the channel, Little Flexers. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video, or if you're new here, welcome for the first time. Yeah, my hair is not normally like this, but frankly, haven't had a lot of time recently. Got a couple kids, and I've been off at Pokemon tournaments, and that's actually the topic for today's video. My recap of the 2024-2025 Toronto Regional Championships from my perspective. These are all the stories that I had at the tournament, what happened to me, how I did, miscellaneous things. It was a fun tournament. Heading into Toronto, obviously I had won this tournament last year, and so I had, high hopes. It's always kind of fun to dream, right? Being able to go back to back is not an opportunity that you have very often, and I was looking forward to competing again. I haven't had a chance to go to too many regionals. This is my second regional this year. I, of course, placed 33rd in Baltimore at the beginning of the season. Got a few things lined up. We'll talk about that at the end of the video. But whole weekend started off kind of poorly. I hopped on my plane and immediately ripped my pants. No, it wasn't down the seam. It was on the pant leg. I guess something must have caught on one of the chairs as I was sidling in to my seat. But yeah, ripped my pants. You could see the picture on Twitter if you're so inclined, but pretty rough start to say the least, because I had only packed, thank goodness I packed another set of sweatpants. But yeah, as you can imagine, you probably want to have pants in Toronto in December. Anyway, get to the hotel, and at this point it's already like 12:30 at night. I'm looking through the list, I'm re-sleeving for the next day, and of course I make some of my classic midnight changes. I'm very much known in my friend group to, have a deck and then make a few changes without telling anyone, and then rolling with what I feel convicted is the perfect 60. And that's exactly what I did for this tournament. We're going to look at the deck in just a moment, but I did want to illustrate that this is something that I tend to do, and it kind of frustrates my companions, especially Jesse. He's always been like, man, wouldn't it be cool if, we played the same deck and then we had good results, and then on Limitless it would show that both of us played the same deck. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it would be pretty cool, except I can't go against my conviction. So let's take a look at that Dragapult Iron Thorns deck. Now, I went with Dragapult Iron Thorns because I felt like it was a good counter deck to the meta. The backup deck that I had was Regidrago. I'd actually played that to a cup earlier in the week, or I guess 2 weeks prior. And it felt good. I was happy with it, but I wanted to try out this counter strategy because I really believed in the power of Iron Thorns and Klefki. And I felt like Cloth was going to be a big deck. I felt like Charizard was going to be a decently big deck. And those are two decks. I mean, you should win with Regidrago, but I wasn't particularly happy with those matchups as I was playing with Regidrago at the cup. I played against a couple of Charizards with Regidrago, and that always felt really close. And if my opponent didn't, misplay, I probably would have lost. Similarly, you really I don't think want to be playing against Cloth as the Regidrago player. But anyway, I figured, okay, Dragapult is very good. Iron Thorns is very good. This is one of the few decks that has a very low play rate and yet has been putting up pretty solid finishes, top 8s, top 16s. And it's a relatively new archetype. So I think there's something here. I didn't have as much preparation time as I normally would like. And that's, just a consequence of where I'm at right now in my job and my home life. But I opted for this list. You'll see that it has a, pretty standard Pokemon lineup. I did want to call out the Klefki as basically being a 5th Iron Thorns. And I think going back, I would try to include maybe a 6th or even a 7th, ability locking Pokemon like, the Iron Thorns Klefki, maybe shift around the counts. I think it's just so important for this deck to start a way to throw off your opponent that you really want to try to maximize that when you can. The rest of the list, pretty straightforward. I did opt to include one rare candy, which is a little bit unique. It was an okay card. Don't really have any strong opinions on the rare candy. And then the other card that I did include that not many people had was a switch, which I actually really liked. It can be good for things like poison. It can be good to move an Iron Thorns or a Toad Scroll after your opponent Ionos. Maybe they gust it or something. But there are times where the energy can be in the wrong places, and so you might want to have a raw switch that you can maybe even Arven for later in the game. So I did like that inclusion. The rare candy, not so much. But let's get into the matchups at Toronto. So in Toronto, and I'll shift over to Training Court. This is an application that I designed, by the way, myself and Jared Grimes. He was the founder of the PokeStats website from a couple of years ago, but that there was maybe a conflict of interest with being able to see people's results and their decks that he ended up shutting that site down. Anyway, we created this new site, trainingcourt.app. Check that out. And this is where I track all of my tournament performances. So Toronto Regionals here, we have obviously our Iron Thorns Dragapult deck. And this was a round by round. I'm going to go round by round here through what happened in the tournament. Now, round one, I played a Pokedad who apparently knew my brother from Wisconsin, which was really cool. My brother used to live in Wisconsin, started picking up the game in Wisconsin, and his closest league was actually at this league that this person went to. So he was playing Cerule Edge. It was a little bit tough. I think he maybe had some opportunities to take different lines, but I was able to win that one 2-0. Next round was, man, the Turbo Iron Thorns is really a difficult matchup, and I was barely able to squeak by. There was a pivotal moment in game number one, actually a couple. He had a double catcher flip that he flipped, double Pokemon catcher, 2 tails to basically win the game, and then he had another opportunity all he had to do was draw into an energy switch, and he had a Mew EX for 3, and the last card of his deck was the energy switch, and it was like, oh my gosh, like a lot of things had to go right in that game for me to win, but they did. And then I also won that second game as well. Heading into round 3, I was playing against Dean Nizam. This is a player that goes way back. I think is a regional champion. I'm pretty sure he is. And was playing the Regidrago deck. He played with Scramble Switch, which I thought was very interesting, and it actually won him the first game. He was able to Scramble Switch into a Mew. He copied my Dragapult's attack. I made a bit of a misplay by not benching another Pokemon, and then he was able to make a bundle play and knock out 2 Pokemon with Regidrago. It was pretty unfortunate. That's how it happened. I made a misplay. I could have benched something to prevent the bundle play, but I ended up losing a really long game 1, and then I was trying to play fast in game 2, and I just wasn't able to come back from that. So really disappointing there on that third round, because you start to play against the better players. Obviously, Dean knows what he's doing with the Regidrago deck, and I just couldn't quite get there. I had the opportunity to win, but I kind of knew as soon as I had attacked and I hadn't benched my Klefki in my hand, I was like, oh shoot, now I see that he has this bundle play. He can super rod it back and get everything going. So really unfortunate there, but it is what it is. I was pretty bummed with the misplay, but in those situations, you just have to put your head down and keep moving forward. So round number 4, I have no show here. That's not quite accurate to what happened. So we ended up sitting down at the table, and my opponent and I, I'm getting set up, and I don't see my opponent, and he runs over and sets his backpack down, and he looks like he's in a little bit of a huff, and he's searching his backpack for his deck, and he just tells me like, yeah, I can't find my deck. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't have it in my backpack. So immediately I'm like, okay, well, is there anything I can do to help? He's like, no, I'm just going to go back and check the table that I was at. Maybe it'll be there. And I was like, yeah. And, make sure you check the lost and found too. Cause a lot of times what will happen is if somebody leaves a deck, they'll turn it to lost and found. And, he comes back and, they're about, 8 minutes have elapsed already at this point, after he had done his searching, and he comes back and he's like, yeah, you know what? I just don't have it. So I'm going to concede. And I'm like, well, we can't just let the story end like that. Okay. If if we go past the time, like, okay, like you take the loss this round, but let's get you a deck for the next round. So I'm like, okay, what did you play? He's like, Charizard. Bummer. I had only packed my Regidrago deck because I would have just handed that over to him and got him going for the next, the next few rounds. But the person sitting next to us, Tate Whitesoul, reaches into his backpack and he pulls out a Charizard deck. And he's like, well, it doesn't have quite all the pieces. So, you'll have to find 5 or 6 more cards. And he hands it over to him and it's like, but go ahead and use this for the rest of the event. And the dude's like, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we're like laying it out on the table. We realize he's about 4 cards short. I end up giving him like a Pheasantipity, a Nest Ball, an Iono, I think were the cards that I contributed. So I contributed 3 cards. He ended up having a 59 card deck that he could play with through the rest of the tournament. He obviously had to buy 1 more card from the vendor. It was like a Duskull or something. But we got him his deck and that was really cool. I was really impressed with Tate. For showing that spirit of the game to just lend a deck without really even thinking twice about it. And, it was just great that we were able to piece this person together a deck so that they continue on with the tournament, right? It's a big investment when you go to these things and it really just sucks when things like these happen. These unfortunate events happen, right? And so happy that he was able to get a deck remade. It ended up being a couple rounds later. I ended up seeing him. And he's like, oh yeah, I got my deck back. They put it at the Hive instead of the Lost and Found. So he was able to get his deck back with all his cards. And that was good. Round number 5, I played a mirror. I won a long game 1. Game 2, I probably should have scooped after kind of seeing the lines. I think he got the first attack off and that really is just a big deal in the mirror. And then game number 3 of that set, I think I was in a good spot to win, but we just didn't have enough time to complete the game. And so we had to take that tie there. Pretty unfortunate because, I felt like generally I was playing pretty well up to that point, in that set. And, taking a tie always hurts, especially when I felt like I could have played a little bit better in terms of scooping. And then in round 6, this is one of the first cloth matchups that I played. They just double donked me. I started, 2 Dreepy twice. I think you still go second. I'm like pretty convinced that you still go second because if you start the Klefki or if you start the Iron Thorns, you're in such a good spot. But he ended up, going first both times because first time he won the flip, I think. And then the second time I let him go first and he was able to get the donk both times. Now I was really frustrated because the deck has about a 60+% chance of starting either Klefki or Iron Thorns or starting 2 Pokemon in hand, right? I would just bench 2 Pokemon, but unfortunately wasn't my round there. And he ended up winning that one. Of course, I played exactly 1 card in the matchup, which was a Psychic Energy. I guess I went first. He chose second. Okay. I went first and I attached a Psychic Energy. That's right. Okay, that's what it was. Because I remember distinctly playing 1 card. It was like Dreepy, Psychic, pass. And that was all I played. Round 7, played against a Bannet. Not particularly notable. Round 8 probably was the hardest and most emotionally draining game of Pokemon that I played in quite a while. We decided before the round, hey, do you want to make sure that we don't tie, obviously, or let's make sure that this game ends. How do you want to do it? And we both decide prizes because that's pretty objective. Generally, when I'm doing a gentleman's agreement, unless I'm playing a super slow deck, which I guess I am here. But you could take early prizes with like an Iron Thorns, right? It's not out of the question. But I generally am going for the generally going for the prize strategy. Like if somebody asks for a gentleman's agreement or I propose one. So that's what we did. We get down to the 3rd game and I'm just getting wrecked. I'm really just getting demolished. He makes a few misplays on his part. He could have sealed up the game, but forgets to discard the right energy with the Reggie so he could attack with the Pikachu and does a few other things that, are suboptimal. And he ends up getting to this point where we both, we're both at the end of time and there's no clear winner because I technically am ahead on prizes and he is very much winning on the board state. But Ryan ends up ends up conceding that one, and it was just like really emotionally hard for both of us because we it's just hard. It's hard if you're ever in a gentleman's situation. It's hard, and I try not to put myself in those situations when I can. And it just showed a lot of sportsmanship for him there to honor that gentleman's agreement, and really big props to Ryan there for that. I head into the winning in against a Dragapult player. Dragapult player was super happy just to be there. I don't really know that, necessarily played the best. And I was able to like start Iron Thorns, I think, in at least one of the games that really slowed him down. I was able to take it in a couple quick games, and I was ecstatic, dude. It was so good to win that winning in. This puts me at day 2s at regionals of like 7 out of the last 8 tournaments, or 8 out of the last 9. I'll have to go back and check, but it's been a pretty good streak for me dating back to last season of day 2ing these regional events. And I'm really happy about that consistency that I've displayed. This is by far the best, most consistent play that I've had in my career, like for the last year and a half. And I really feel like I'm at the top of my game competitively. And this was just another confirmation, because I felt throughout the day, my deck wasn't like the greatest. I wasn't really beating the bricks off anybody like I'd imagined in my head. I was doing just enough to get by. And that was, true here getting into day 2. So had a chance to go out to eat, had a chance to watch the Red Wings win. The Detroit Red Wings were playing the Toronto Maple Leafs in Detroit, but it was fun to go to the bars because you saw all the people in their Maple Leafs gear and you're wearing your Red Wings sweater, and yeah, it was pretty sick. Heading into day 2, played this also just really hard matchup, Turbo Roaring Moon. I ended up clutching that one out. And then in round 11, played against an Iron Thorns, straight Iron Thorns. He ended up prizing his Devolution. I had 2 damaged Dragapult EX. He ended up like last prizing his Devolution, which probably would have given him the win if he would have been able to pull that off and devolve both of my Dragapults. Wasn't able to do that, and then in game 2, he just wasn't able to find another Dragapult. So I just ran him off another Iron Thorns. So I just ran him off the board there. Round number 12, I played against Vance Kelly. We're in a really tight game 1. He's like, dude, I think you're playing Miraidon. I'm like, no. And he opts to go second. And so I don't get to play my supporter for turn. I miss the first turn energy attachment. And I'm literally 1 turn behind because he opted to go second. It kind of stunted my growth. I had to, stunt my growth. That's kind of a funny way to put it. But it like stunted me just enough that I had to kind of scramble to come back, and I was 1 turn away from winning, and he was able to clutch it out. And then he just demolished me in game 2. Okay, whatever. I'll go on to the last round and just win, and I'll feel good about my, top 64 placement, maybe top 32 at 931. No, it's got to be top 64, I think, at that point. But play another cloth, and you'll never guess what happened. Yeah, that's right. I start 2 non-ability locking basics and get double donked again. So just a really sad tournament there for the cloths, and really unfortunate. Again, there's like a 64% chance that I start Klefki or Iron Thorns, and if I start either of those, I think the matchup is perfectly fine. Didn't do that in all 4 games, so I really low rolled overall, and that's how my tournament ended. 8-4-1. I'm really dejected. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get top 256. At this point, every point matters for me because I'm not going to a lot of events. I'm going to I think I have 5 majors scheduled. So I need to get points at every single event, and I need to not only get points, but maximize the amount of points. If I have any shot, if I have any hope of a Worlds invite, I have to go to these events, maximize the amount of points that I get from these events, and and just hope that that's better than, the next guy, better than the 126th most point player. you know. And so I was able to do that to an extent. I hit top 128. So got another 80 points to Worlds. That puts me at 315 with just 2 regionals. So I have a couple of ICs coming up. The European International Championships is the next tournament that I'm attending. I'll be trying to go to NAIC and then try to hit up like 1 more regional, maybe 2 more regionals. We'll see. And then I have a couple of cup finishes left and 3 out of my 4 league challenge finishes. So I really got to start picking up the pace here on locals, but puts me at 315. We'll see. I don't really have a beat on where that is in the standings. I mean, I know I'm in the 200 somethings in North America, but maybe the players in front of me all have better locals finishes, because right now I have a top 64 and a top 128. Not quite the finishes that I want, but they're enough to like still feel like I'm in the mix heading into the back half of the season. So that all that said and done, another finish for me. I hop back on the plane, and one more dub that I haven't mentioned. I hop back on the plane. I get to my seat, and I see a pair of wireless headphones on the floor. I pick them up, and I ask the guy in front of me, he's the only one there. He's like, "Hey, did you lose some of these Samsung earbuds?" He's like, "No." And there's literally no one else around. I'm like, okay, Christmas came early. I guess if the plane takes my pants going there, it can give me something in return. And that's something in return. Nice little Samsung earbuds that I've been using for the last few days. Really nice, actually. And the case is really heavy, and the sound is good quality. So anyway, that is that. If you have any questions about the run, about the deck, please post them down below. Of course, you can find me on x.com at Real John Walter. That's probably the that's the place. If you want to get in touch with me, find me over there. But that's gonna do it for me today. That is the recap of the Toronto Regional Championships. Thank you so much for watching. If I don't see you soon, I'll see you later. If I don't see you soon, I'll see you later. And remember, good luck, and also have fun.